G'day, I'm Charlie Pryde.
And I'm Jennifer Pryde. Welcome to our YouTube channel, Pride of the Villages.
So up front, I'm going to apologize for mispronunciation of any Chinese persons, places, or things in this video. Google is not my friend, as sometimes I would type in a word and I would get 3 different pronunciations of that word. Nevertheless, we hope you find this video informative, whether it's making a decision on whether to take a trip with Viking to China, or if you're already booked on a trip, how to make your trip more enjoyable. China, the Middle Kingdom. With thousands of years of human history, 1.4 billion people, and undergoing a technology revolution, this country has always been on our bucket list for travel. So recently, we took a 15-day trip to China with Viking Cruise Lines, which included a 9-night cruise on the Viking Yi Dun, followed by land excursions to Xi'an and Beijing. Considering the length of this trip and details we will provide, this specific video will highlight the 9-night cruise on the Yi Dun, and we will publish a separate video on the Xi'an to Beijing land excursion portion of our trip. First, we need to explain the history of the Viking Yi Dun. This ship was initially launched as the Viking Sun in 2017 and was the 4th ocean cruise ship in the fleet. In 2019, Viking Cruises and the China Merchants Group signed a memorandum of understanding to form a joint venture focused on building a cruise line with worldwide cruise offerings for the Chinese domestic cruise market. This was a logical business venture considering Viking was already catering to the Chinese tourist market by offering cruises on European rivers on its longboats with Mandarin language services. Additionally, pre-COVID pandemic, Viking had a 15-year history operating the Yangtze River cruises combined with land excursions to major cities in China. The joint venture launched in 2021, and the Viking Sun was renamed the Zhao Shang Yi Dun, which translates as China Merchants Eden and reflagged in China as it is registered in the port of Shenzhen. The Yi Dun is considered the first luxury cruise ship under Chinese flag, and by media accounts something the Chinese are very proud of. The advantage of the boat being under the Chinese flag is that government regulations only allow China-flagged ships can sail between mainland ports, and several of the ports on this itinerary are not open for cruise ships flagged in other countries. So for several months, September to November in 2024, this ship was open to inaugural bookings by Western customers for 8 sailings. While the initial cruise price offerings were at full price, they did drop over time, and we took advantage of the discount along with the offer of free air travel to book a deluxe veranda on a 15-day classic China and coast itinerary. At $6,000 per person, while still a lot of money, we thought this was great value considering pricing out the airfare alone was $2,000 each. Now, travel to China certainly has some hurdles. First is the trepidation of travel considering relations between China and the United States governments. There are the constant news reports about potential trade wars and military posturing in the Taiwan Straits and South China Sea, both areas you'll be sailing through. Consequently, this is the first overseas vacation where we actually purchase travel insurance as a precaution. Now, Viking will send you a series of notices to know before you go, to include entry requirements for China. A 10-year passport valid for 6 months beyond the date of the trip is required. A Chinese visa is required, and the visa application plus passport and a $140 fee per person must be submitted to the Chinese embassy or a Chinese consulate. The embassy is in Washington, D.C., and the consulates are in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, none of which are close to us in Central Florida. So for us, it was either take a long road trip to obtain a visa or utilize a visa processing service. We picked the latter and utilized Gen Visa, which was recommended by Viking. However, it did come at a hefty cost of $984 for the 2 of us. Nevertheless, the process was relatively seamless, and we got our passports returned within 6 weeks. Our L category tourist Chinese visa is valid for 10 years, which stays up to 90 days after entry. The second thing Viking informs you of is that China has become a cashless country. Yes, they have a currency, the yuan, and international credit cards are still accepted in some Western brand establishments. However, in China, the vast majority of payments between customers and vendors are done electronically over cell phones utilizing payment apps. We found Alipay to be the easiest to set up and utilize in China, and there are plenty of instructional YouTube videos on this. The Alipay account will be linked to your stateside credit card, and all expenditures can be tracked on the app. I utilized the app 22 times during my trip, purchasing everything from subway tickets to drinks and souvenirs. It is important to have a good cell phone connection to utilize the payment apps, and my overseas Verizon plan worked for me. We actually found the cell tower coverage in China better than some places here in Florida, which brings us to communication. There is the Great Wall of China, and then there is the Great Firewall of China. Viking recommends that you download a virtual private network, VPN, on your personal devices before leaving the United States, especially if you're reliant on Google, YouTube, Facebook, or U.S. news sources during your journey, as these sites are blocked by Chinese internet providers. The last bit of pre-departure advice would be to enroll in the Department of State's Smart Traveler program for all the latest advice on traveling to China. Now that all the pre-departure information is done, let's get on with the trip. As stated, Viking provided economy class airfare in our booking to include the airport transfers. For us, that was Orlando to Chicago on United Airlines, and then Chicago to Hong Kong on Cathay Pacific. China is 13 hours ahead of Eastern Standard Time, and we departed Orlando at 9:30 a.m. on a Sunday and arrived in Hong Kong at 8 o'clock in the evening on Monday. The Hong Kong airport is one of the most modern in the world, and it was fairly smooth going through immigration and customs. After exiting customs, we were met by several Viking representatives. Viking will provide you with red identification stickers in a pre-departure packet, along with baggage tags with your cabin number. Jennifer looking bright and chirpy.
After 15 hours on the plane.
And she has her little Viking sticker on there. You will then get on a transfer bus for a ride to the Hong Kong and China mainland administrative boundary. I won't go into the detailed history on why there is a boundary, but this building is where you will come to. Here you will unload your luggage, walk through the one side of the building processing out of Hong Kong, and then enter mainland China, where they will take your photo, electronic fingerprints, and stamp your passport, all done for us in quick time. Exiting the building, you are now in mainland China and back on the bus on your way to the International Cruise Terminal in Shenzhen. Arriving at the cruise terminal, it looks very large and mostly deserted, but it was now 10 p.m., and the Viking staff directed us to the arrivals desk. Checking in, we received our cabin cards and all of our shore excursion tickets for the port of calls. Upon arrival at our cabin, the checked luggage arrived quickly, and stacks of sandwiches and pastries were waiting for us. A nice touch. Considering the 13-hour time difference, we got some sleep, but we're actually up early as it will take a couple of days for our body clocks to adjust. This gave me a chance to check out the ship and see what modifications were made, going from the Viking Sun to the Viking Yi Dun. Noticeable is the decor, with a combination of Chinese and Nordic in the displays. Certainly a contrast, but for me it works as I am interested in both. The Explorer's Lounge in Mamsen still has the Norwegian blankets and reindeer pelts. There are displays that historically honor both the Viking Cruise brand and the China Merchants Group brand. There are in fact two noticeable changes in the ship. First is the Torshavn on the other Viking Ocean vessels is replaced on the Yi Dun by the 1872 lounge. 1872 being the founding year of the China Merchant Group. This lounge is a distinctive after-dinner music and dance venue serving Chinese wines and original cocktails prepared with regional spirits. The second is one of the retail shops, is now the Oriental Shop, with of course Oriental items for purchase. Also noticeable is many of the signs on the ship are in English and Chinese, making sense considering the domestic cruise market. Overall, I think the Yi Dun decor appropriately showcases China's folk customs, history, and culture to European and American visitors, while also maintaining the Viking Cruise Line's Norwegian roots. At 8:15 a.m., it was our first included shore excursion, Shenzhen from the sea. This was aboard one of China Merchant's modern catamarans, which was moored next to the Yi Dun, an easy walk to get on board. This cruise had a full 2-hour schedule, and you could take in as much as you wanted to include live music, a magic show, and narration of the scenery both on the Shenzhen side and the Hong Kong side of the bay. The singers were very good, but I found most interesting the narration on the growth of Shenzhen, from a small fishing village to the modern metropolis of today. During the day, the ship ran a shuttle bus service to SeaWorld in Shenzhen. Now, this SeaWorld is not like the ones in the United States, as it has no performing orcas or sea lions. SeaWorld is a large shopping and dining complex based on a nautical theme. The centerpiece is the landlocked Minghao cruise ship. This huge vessel has been turned into multiple restaurants and bars. It was here, or rather the nearby port, that the idea of a modern, open China was launched back in 1979. It was designated as a free trade zone and allowed foreign companies to come in and open up shop, a small test run for the more capitalistic economic model. Besides a plethora of restaurants, there is also plenty of shopping. Gateway 1 is a multi-level, super modern shopping mall with a range of stores to include Western and Chinese brands. There is an IMAX movie theater and an emphasis on entertainment for the kids. On the roof, there was a garden area with great views of the SeaWorld area. Returning to the ship for the evening, we attended the entertainment in the Star Theater. First, there is an introduction of the ship's officers and an interesting fact that 90% of the crew is from the People's Republic of China. So you may ask, what was their level of English-speaking skills? Well, it was a mix. Most crew members spoke some English, with the cruise director jokingly calling it Chinglish. Managers and those in primary customer service roles being the most fluent. There were occasions when there was a loss in translation with a crew member, but typically that got resolved with another crew member helping out. I would say that this Chinese crew was one of the best we have ever encountered on an ocean cruise, and it was a joy interacting with them. The evening performance in the theater was a female acrobatic group, and it was our favorite of the onboard entertainment and not something to be missed. The next day was a sea day, and being that you are sailing the Pacific Ocean, Mother Nature can be temperamental. Not much of a sun-decked day, but thankfully there is plenty of inside lounging on the Yi Dun. Our day started in the fitness center, and then we moved on to the Nordic Spa. It is fantastic that this spa is open free of charge. Taking in the sauna, whirlpools, cool down with a bucket of cold water, and then venture into the snow grotto. That will wake you up.
Charlie in the snow grotto. It feels like you are in the middle of a refrigerator, a freezer.
I've only been in here for an hour.
Yeah, more like 30 seconds.
There is a variety of onboard activities throughout the day listed in the Viking Daily, with trivia, card games, arts, and crafts. There is also a chance to learn mahjong, an important table game in Chinese culture. Special aboard Viking Ocean Ships are the guest lectures, coming from esteemed speakers, subject range from Chinese history, Beijing Olympic Games, the Chinese technology revolution, and everything you wanted to know about tea.
So, for those of you who have not gotten tea.
Speaking of tea, there was a Chinese tea ceremony performed in the Explorers Lounge. And there is always the afternoon tea in the Winter Garden with all the scrumptious treats that come with the brew. Sea days are always a good day to visit the restaurants when you have more time on hand and you are not running to and back from shore excursions. Chinese cuisine on board the Yi Dun. You will have the opportunity to eat the local cuisine at every meal on board. Starting with breakfast, you will see Chinese dishes on the buffet in the World Cafe, along with traditional Western dishes. Mixing both, I found myself with a pork bun next to my hash browns. To experience a traditional Chinese breakfast, we would recommend visiting the restaurant, as they have to-order menu items along with dim sum trolley that roams the dining area.
Okay, good.
This was sweet and salted yolk bun.
Okay.
This one is vegetables bun. It's,
Vegetables?
yeah, it's cabbage and carrot, you say.
We tried all four of the dim sums, and they were very good. Remember that the Yi Dun is a mix of China and Norway, and Mamsen's is still the best waffles at sea, along with other cakes and pastries from the founding family's recipes. For lunch, you will once again have Chinese cuisine available in the World Cafe and the restaurant, but the pool grill is another good option. The grill serves up Chinese barbecue skewers, along with several noodle dishes that we enjoyed, salads, and fruit. There will also be several culinary events on the Aquavit Terrace. There was a taste of China with a variety of dishes from across the country. When off the boat, you will see a lot of street food available, but maybe not have the confidence to dive into it. Therefore, on board, there was a dinner event called Traditional Chinese Street Food, where you could sample what is found on the street in a more stomach-friendly environment. On that note, Viking recommends that you only drink bottled water when on shore, and they will provide bottled water at the gangway when exiting the ship. Another alternative is to bring a reusable water bottle and filling it on board. For dinner, the World Cafe has a good spread of Chinese dishes. One night there was even Peking duck. Great seafood is on the buffet nightly with fish, shrimp, crab, and a variety of abalone, clams, and mussels. The sushi was also very good. There was a surf and turf night at the buffet, and the lobster tails were a really nice size. The two specialty restaurants that are included in the cruise fare, Manfredi's and Chef Table, require reservations. Visit Manfredi's if you are craving Italian cuisine. The Chef's Table 5-course set Oriental menu rotated during the cruise. For the first 3 days, it was Singaporean cuisine, followed by Japanese and Korean, and then Thai. We visited during the Japanese and Korean rotation. Other than the first course, we found the dishes very enjoyable, especially the Korean barbecue. Now, an insider tip that is not advertised on the cruise, that is the opportunity to experience Chinese hot pot on board. Several nights on the cruise, weather dependent, the outside tables on the Aquavit Terrace offers hot pot dining. Tables are limited, reservations required, and they can be made at the dining reservation desk. Beware that hot pot can be very spicy, and you are likely to discover some proteins and vegetables that you have not experienced before. If not familiar with hot pot, don't worry, the staff will assist you.
Huh? Oh, I'm gonna get a sauce.
This is no spicy. You need to mix your sauce. Okay.
Alright.
And then this is shrimp.
If you are a coffee drinker, specialty coffees are served in the living room starting at 6 a.m. or visit the 24-hour self-serve machines in a World Cafe for your cappuccinos or lattes. The next morning, we arrive in the port of Xiamen, a city with a population of over 5 million people. It has been an important port for centuries and became one of China's earliest special economic zones in the 1980s. The name Xiamen means door to the house, referring to the city's century-old role as a gateway to China. This morning, we are taking the Viking-included tour to the Huihe Stone Cultural Park. It is a short drive from the ship, and it takes about 1.5 hours to tour the whole park. During the visit, a Viking guide and a local guide will introduce the park to you. Beautifully landscaped, there are Buddhas and other figures dispersed on the grounds. You will visit the cultural corridor of Chinese stones. Interesting that so many stone carvings are of lions, but lions were never native to China. In Chinese culture, lions are highly significant as symbols of power, protection, and courage, often depicted as guardian figures placed in front of important buildings due to the belief that their fierce presence wards off evil spirits and brings good luck. There were some great works of stone reliefs depicting military actions. The Stone Carvings Museum had a variety of religious figures. Then there was the shadow stone carvings, which is an artistic specialty in this area of China. You can give it a try yourself or watch a master at work. Pieces of this art are available for purchase. In the afternoon, we took an optional tour to Gulangyu Island to see the Zhoushan Gardens. This required taking a ferry with a terminal being close to where the Yi Dun was docked. Although only about 20,000 people live on the island, Gulangyu is an important domestic tourist destination, attracting more than 10 million visitors per year and making it one of China's most visited tourist attractions, thus the number of people lining up for the ferry trip. Once on the ferry, it was a comfortable seating for a 10-minute ride to the island. Gulangyu is a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site and is only about 2 kilometers square. Gulangyu is a pedestrian-only island, with the permitted vehicles being electric tourist buggies. Viking arranged for some of these electric buggies to take the group to the far side of the island and to the entrance of the garden. Historically, the island was an international settlement, hosting 13 countries, including Great Britain, France, the Netherlands, and Japan, where their citizens had extraterritorial privileges. Thus, the predominantly Victoria-era style architecture that can still be seen throughout the island. Zhoushan Gardens was built in 1913, originally a private villa of a prestigious Taiwan businessman, Lin Erjia. The garden was donated to the country in 1955. The garden was built according to the natural landform of the coast, which creates a charming view of the garden on the sea and the sea in the garden. The gardens offer brilliant sea views, waterfalls, freshwater pools, and a cliff-top walk. The garden incorporates the natural landscape into its design and centers on a pond with walkways, bridges, pavilions, and classical Chinese buildings. There are 10 different themed gardens on the property. Walking out to the sea on the 44 Bridge, named after the owner of the garden, who was 44 years old when he built the bridge. There are gates under the bridge that bring seawater into the garden. It forms the 3 areas of the sea, the outer pool and the inner pool. Working our way up to the higher ground, we reach the Piano Museum. As a place of residence for Westerners during Xiamen's colonial past, Gulangyu households contained over 200 pianos. Several of the most prominent ones are now displayed in the Piano Museum, part of the garden complex. After our visit, it was a ride back down to the ferry dock, passing a number of tour groups who looked like their day was spent. It was a great day in Xiamen, incorporating both the included tour and the optional tour. Viking also provided a shuttle bus to a pedestrian shopping street for those not going on tours. The next morning, we arrived in the port of the island of Pingtan, which is the largest island in the Fujian province and straddles the boundary between the East and South China Seas. Known for its geography as being the closest mainland point to Taiwan, and its consistent winds that provide the ideal environment for wind electrical generation farms. The cruise port is industrial and there is nothing immediate around the terminal of tourist interest, so buses are used to transport passengers to the shore excursion sites. Today, we chose the included tour, which is a 3-hour visit to Haitan Ancient Town. Now, Ancient Town is ancient in name only, as it was only built in 2016, featuring ancient architectural styles, the first tourist attraction of its kind in China. Its primary development purpose was a venue to draw tourists from Taiwan to the mainland. While much busier during the summer months and the Chinese holidays, we were visiting during the shoulder season, and Viking Tours pretty much had the town to itself. With an investment of $1.4 billion, Haitan Ancient Town occupies an area of 700,000 square meters and consists of more than 150 old-style buildings, most of them 2 and 3 stories high, housing restaurants, snack bars, 5-star hotels, and souvenir stores. Settled back in the Ming Dynasty, this area had an important military and maritime role for China in the Qing Dynasty. Our tour included a visit to the Coastal Defense Museum, with artifacts relating to Pingtan's role as an important base for the Chinese Navy. Its total exhibition area is about 3,000 square meters over 3 floors, and this huge replica warship occupies the center of the museum. Many of the displays honor generals and battles won. Featured are people's resistance to invasion and foreign aggression, including battles with the British, Dutch, and Japanese. In all, it was a very informative museum incorporating terrain models, real-life wax figures, simulated warship cabins, 3D phantom imagery, and other technologies. After the museum visit, we were given some free time to explore the town further. There were statues located around the town that depicted ancient life, which was interesting, especially when this crazy lady started asking them questions. Back on the boat, sailing through the night, we head into the port of Dongtou. Like Pingtan, this is primarily a commercial port, so you want to take an included Viking tour or one of the optional tours. We decided to do the optional tour to hike Yandang Mountain, which was about a 90-minute bus ride from the port. Upon arrival, there was a relief map in the parking lot, which displayed the topography of the area. This is a very popular domestic and international tourist attraction, but the processing into the park was rather quick, and soon we were on a shuttle bus to our first hike. This tour is demanding, as we walked 6.5 miles this day. The Yandang Mountains were formed 120 million years ago through volcanic activity. In 2004, this area became a National Geological Park, and in 2005 was named a World Geopark by UNESCO with a total area of 450 square kilometers. Mount Yandang is known for its natural environment, rising from its vertical rock faces and pinnacles, mountain slopes with forest and bamboo groves, streams, waterfalls, and caves. The area also hosts several temples and shrines, many of them with a long history. Characteristic of the temples is that many of them are built inside caves or in mouths of caves. We are on our way to one such temple in the Lingfang Peak Scenic Area. First built in 265 AD, this is a Buddhist temple and honors Guanyin, who is often referred to as the most widely beloved Buddhist divinity, with miraculous powers to assist all those who pray to her. The temple lies between 2 rock peaks leaning against each other, such that a big crack-like cave is formed. The peaks are together known as the Holding Palms Peak. The cave is 100 meters high, with the cave bottom sloping steeply up. The temple follows its natural structure and has 9 levels, with the Guanyin Shrine occupying the highest, most hidden section of the cave. What goes up must come down as we are heading to lunch. On the way, the smell of incense was in the air. Like U.S. national parks, there was a lot of tourist infrastructure close by to include hotels and restaurants. This was our stop for lunch, which was included in the tour price. The typical lunch meal experience on this tour is family style, served on a Lazy Susan. There will be a great number of dishes, some of them undoubtedly that you have never tried before. My advice would be to sample many and go back for seconds on those you enjoy the most. They will have a list of all the dishes. Beer, soft drinks, and bottled water will be included in the meal. Lunch breaks in tourist restaurants are also a good opportunity to use the bathroom. As Jennifer likes to say, there are two types of toilets in China, potties and squatties. Potties being toilets with a seat, and squatties, well, practice your squatting. Always important to carry toilet tissue on the tours, and the tour guides will regularly hand out a pack. After lunch, we were on to our next hike, which required a smaller shuttle bus to negotiate the hairpin turns up the mountain. Arriving in the Fendong scenic area, it started to rain, which contributed to the waterfalls on the mountain. Going through the entrance, we saw this man and realized that his task going up the mountain was more laborious than ours, but he had probably been doing it for years. Walking along a wet cliff edge, we never felt unsafe, as there was a sturdy railing along the route. The trail then cuts through the mountain. Watch your head. Getting back to the other side of the bridge, there was a cafe built into the mountain, a chance for some coffee and some Instagram moments. Our coffee stop, however, was further back on the trail, an area we had passed earlier. A cup of joe or tea included in the tour. As we hiked our way back to the shuttle bus, I would say that this was our most enjoyable shore excursion of the cruise. Overall, physically demanding, but if you like the outdoors and you don't mind heights, we would highly recommend doing this trip. Another tip for traveling in China is to have a translation app on your cell phone. Not only can you translate inputted text and speech, but using the camera you can also translate the many signs you will see on your journey. The next morning, we arrived in the port of Zhoushan, an area encompassing nearly 1,400 islands and more than 3,000 reefs. It is also home to Mount Putuo, one of Buddhism's 4 sacred mountains. Buddhism originated in the northeastern region of India in what is now Nepal around the 5th century BC and was introduced into China by traveling monks during the Han Dynasty around 210 BC. Buddhism took over a century to become assimilated into Chinese culture. It coexisted with native Chinese religious philosophies like Confucianism and Taoism. Now, Buddhism in China has experienced periods of reform and revival, but also suffered setbacks, such as the destruction of temples during the Cultural Revolution. However, today Buddhism is the largest institutionalized religion in mainland China, and this area on the coast certainly contains some of the most important religious sites. The included Viking shore excursion today is an evening theater performance called Impression Putuo. So this morning we are taking an optional tour, the Guanyin Altar. Exiting the ship, we are greeted by a performance troupe doing the lion dance. After a short bus ride, we arrive at this $1.3 billion complex. This complex revolves around the culture of Guanyin, the goddess of mercy in Chinese Buddhism, and incorporates not only the altar but several colleges, lecture halls, and a village for lay monks. Entering the building, we place booties respectfully over our shoes and move into the first room and marble floors. Before entering the Universal Hall, our Viking guide explains what we will see. In the center of the hall stands the statue Guanyin, surrounded by statues of the 8 great Vajras. The circular walls going to the ceiling feature rows of seated Guanyin statues, and at the top of the ceiling lights are shaped like a giant lotus flower. Now the first 7 floors are open for visitors, housing numerous statues of Guanyin in various forms, and we had free time to explore several of the exhibit halls. Approaching noon, it was time to head back to the ship, leaving this beautiful religious site behind. After lunch on the boat, we head out for an afternoon optional tour, the highlights of Zhoushan. Being a recreational fisherman, I was eager to learn about one of the largest commercial fisheries in the world based out of Zhoushan. Seeing the amount of fishing boats in the bay was truly an eye-opener, with an estimated fleet of 700 vessels. Arriving at the city's fish market, the morning fresh fish sale is over, so we visit the dried aquatic product market, or in other words, the dried seafood market. This is a large food hall, and many of the vendors are selling the same dried and salted seafood. We stopped at this couple stand, and they were very friendly and engaging, which is how we found most of the Chinese people on our trip. They encouraged us to try some products.
Dried octopus. Really good.
Actually, it would have gone better with a cold beer. Leaving the fish market, we visited Black Pebble Beach, a popular spot for the locals on a warm day. On this day, however, it was rather sparse, being overcast, but still so very unique that all these pebbles accumulated naturally. That's some words of wisdom. Then it was on to a sandy beach called Dansha, a very large one at that. Pictures showed the popularity of this beach on a warm day. Luckily for us, the star attraction was still standing, and that was the sand sculptures that were developed during a competition back in May. It was explained to us that there is a coating applied to the sculptures that helps them withstand erosion from the wind and rain. It is the year of the dragon, and that featured prominently. In the evening, it was Viking's included tour, the Impression Putuo Performance. This was a short bus ride from the boat, and upon arrival we were greeted by Buddhist monks and received a brochure in English, as well as a lighted lotus flower. This 70-minute, 5-chapter performance takes place in an outdoor theater, and we dressed accordingly. The story is about a man who goes through the struggles of life and finds peace and happiness through the practice of Buddhism. The performance is in Chinese, but the English brochure outlines what is happening in each chapter. The seating platform rotated 360 degrees, so you viewed stunning sets blending in with the surrounding hills. At the end of the performance, the master, surrounded by others holding lotus lamps, leads a procession including audience members, retracing the path of cultivation and making their own wishes. Now you can take your lotus flowers home as a souvenir, or as we did, join in the procession, placing our lights on the water for Buddha's blessing. The next day was a sea day, and we have already addressed what we do on sea days. Sea days are also a chance to take in the varied resident musicians. Since we were into the 8th day of our 15-day trip, it was time for laundry, and conveniently, Viking has washers, dryers, and ironing boards on the cabin floors. Laundry detergent is automatically dispensed. At 5:30 in the next morning, we docked in Shanghai. What began as a fishing village 5,000 years ago is now a modern metropolis and center of finance, home to 25 million people. Shanghai is a mix of new and old, still retaining some of its historical neighborhoods. We are docked on the Boon side of the river, looking across to the Pudong futuristic skyline. Get up early enough and you can catch the sunrise over the skyline. You might as well. The locals are already up doing Tai Chi, and if you're not up early this morning, you'll have a chance on the 2nd, as this is an overnight stay. Today's included shore excursion is highlights of Shanghai, and our first stop is a tour of Yu Garden. Located in Shanghai's Old Town, Yu Garden was first built in 1559 during the Ming Dynasty. It occupies an area of 5 acres, and it perfectly blends decorative halls, elaborate pavilions, glittering ponds, zigzag bridges, archways, and exquisite rocks. Yuyuan Bazaar is located right next to Yu Garden, with beautiful Chinese architecture and design, coupled with hundreds of shops selling pieces of jewelry, silk, antiques, arts, crafts, souvenirs, and local snacks. We found this to be the best location to purchase authentic Chinese souvenirs on the cruise. There is also a wide range of street food, some of it healthy, and some not so much. Back on the bus to our next tour stop, Nanjing Road. The street is named after Nanjing, the former capital of the Republic of China. Today's Nanjing Road comprises two sections, Nanjing Road East, Nanjing Road West. The eastern part of Nanjing Road is the main shopping district in Shanghai. It is one of the world's busiest shopping streets in the world, ranking up there with Fifth Avenue and Oxford Street. Now, we did not spend a lot of time here before the tour returned to the ship, so we decided to venture back out in the afternoon, taking the Shanghai Metro. There is a metro station at the cruise port, and it was easy to navigate back to Nanjing Road. The ticket machines have an English menu. The metro maps, station signs, and routes inside the metro cars are also in English. This is a very safe and clean way to transport yourself around the city. Arriving at Nanjing Road West, we specifically wanted to visit the Starbucks Reserve Roastery, one of only 6 in the world. It is an open-story, 30,000 square foot mini attraction for Starbucks lovers. One of our daughters is a huge Starbucks fan, so this is where we picked up some of her Christmas gifts. Besides the signature small lot roasting that occurs on site, there is also a great number of seating options, a bakery, a coffee and alcohol mixed cocktail bar, and a large section just for merchandise sale, although nothing is cheap here. Being late afternoon, it was time to take the metro back to the ship. It's a happy face.
It's a tired face.
We did have an evening event on the schedule, the optional tour for an acrobatic performance, a short bus ride to Shanghai Circus World, and we were ready for the show, which was a variety of acts, and overall we really enjoyed it. Back on the ship, and the Pudong side of the river is all lit up. Our ship docked with the port or left side of the boat facing this skyline. These lights will stay on until approximately 10 p.m., so make sure you get those photos before they go off. The next morning, all the passengers are required to leave the ship. Some are going home, and others are going on to other parts of China or Asia. So we will end our video here. As I explained at the start, we will post another video with our trip to Xi'an and Beijing, highlighting the Viking arranged transportation, the hotels and meals, and of course the excursions, to include the historic city walls of Xi'an, the terracotta warriors, and in Beijing, the Temple of Heaven, the Summer Palace, Tiananmen Square, the Forbidden City, and of course the Great Wall of China. So until that next video, we wish you a great day, and hopefully you have a very happy holiday season.